Her pulse never changed, not when it charged, not when she threw it. The training grounds on Covas 3 were always cold, not from climate. Its atmosphere was carefully regulated, but from the silence. Recruits rarely spoke, and when they did, it was clipped, rehearsed. The fear of extinction bred obedience faster than any doctrine. Cadet Alara Ken was quieter than most. Not the kind of quiet that came from fear, but something older, something like listening. She moved like someone who'd already seen too much, even though her record showed no prior deployments. She was average in all tests, unremarkable in all drills, except for her eyes, cold, distant, watchful. Sergeant Rourke had seen every type of soldier across 6 sectors and 2 collapses. He trained cowards, killers, and heroes. But Alara, she unnerved him. He wouldn't say it out loud, but he avoided her file. Some things you don't go looking for unless you're ready to understand them. The recruits lined up under the dome as the rain hammered against its transparent surface. A beast stood opposite them, not organic, but close, a Strivic war form, captured and gutted, now repurposed for combat drills, for limbs, armored exoskeleton, artificial tendons for 100 kilograms of murder shaped like a predator. It had once killed an entire outpost before they shut it down with orbital fire. Today, it was deactivated, but still set to full resistance mode. Show me you're more than ghosts, Rourke barked. Next volunteer steps forward. Silence. Then boots. Alara Ken stepped out of the line. Rourke raised an eyebrow. You sure? She said nothing. He gestured. Activate Sim Level 3. Let it fight. The warform systems hummed. Its joints clicked. It moved not with programmed grace, but with the weight of something that remembered hunting humans. Alara stood still. The moment stretched. The Strivic lunged. It should have been over in one heartbeat, but it wasn't. She caught it. She caught it. Her fingers latched onto one of its arms mid-swing, and without a sound, without effort, she pivoted. Metal screamed. Limbs flailed. The 400 kilograms beast hit the ground like thrown debris. Gasps. No one spoke. Alara stood over the wrecked Strivic. Pulse calm. Expression unreadable. Rourke stared at her like she'd just rewritten physics. Or memory. Something stirred deep in him, not fear. Something older. A whisper of war. A whisper of hope. She walked back to the line. That night, Rourke finally opened her file. Earthburn. Status. Lost colony survivor. Age upon recovery. 8. Found among wreckage. No surviving adults. Medical note. Genetic markers inconsistent with known human variants. Anomaly not explained. He leaned back slowly, the storm outside echoing the storm in his chest. The next morning, they received a signal from orbit. The Vastal had returned. The Vastal didn't speak. They never had when they first arrived. Humanity mistook them for a phenomenon of distortion in space, a collapse in stellar logic. Black ships that moved without propulsion, absorbing light into holes that pulsed like living things, weapons of gravitic rupture, Frenchcraft that turned moons inside out. First contact was annihilation. By the time Earth's outer colonies understood it was an invasion, 12 billion were gone. No demands, no symbols, just ships like void wasps erupting from fold space. Humanity fled. The United Terran remnant was now scattered across 5 broken sectors, surviving in hidden bastions, outlaw fleets, or underground fortresses like Covas 3. Rourke stood in the command vault, hands clenched behind his back, eyes on the hologrid above. The red marker pulsed against the orbital line. A Vastal scout vessel confirmed it had slipped past the sensor nets. No weapons fired, no communication attempts. It simply hovered, silent, as if it were waiting. Alara Ken stood at attention in the shadows behind him. She hadn't been summoned, but she came anyway. She always seemed to know when it mattered. It's just watching. Rourke muttered. Same thing they did before Earth burned. Command staff spoke in whispers behind them. Evac protocols. We won't make it. We're not even supposed to be here. It knows we're here, Alara said. Her voice was quiet, but final. Rourke turned. Explain. She stepped forward, gaze fixed on the slowly rotating ship in the projection. That's not a scout. That's an echo. It listens for patterns, traces heat signatures across time frames. It already knows every tunnel, every engine, every heart. Silence. Rourke studied her. How do you know that? She hesitated. Because I've seen one. Before. Up close. When I was a child. That was on a lost colony, Rourke said. Wipe from record. No survivors. I survived, she said, but I didn't escape. There was a shift in the room. She continued, slowly, voice hollow with memory. I was taken, not just left behind. Taken. They didn't kill me. They studied me for years. Then they let me go. No one spoke, not even Rourke. She looked up. They're not machines. They're not aliens like we think. They don't conquer, they rewrite. They filter. Filter what? Alara looked directly at him. Evolution. They remove what doesn't adapt. Rourke felt a chill run down his spine. Behind them, alarms blared breach activity in the upper orbit. A tremor shook the vault. Not a hit, a fold exit, a proximity drop. They're coming, someone shouted. And then the lights flickered, just once. But once was enough. Rourke snapped into motion. Lockdown protocol echo black. Get the cadets into hard shelters. Deploy all ground batteries, and someone patch me to high command now. Staff moved. Panicked but trained. He turned to Alara. What are they after? She paused. Not what. Who? Before he could question her, a piercing sound cut through the station. Not sirens. A hum. Deep. Resonant. Like an ancient cathedral bell struck in the vacuum of space. Every screen glitched. The hologrid flickered to black, then returned with only one image. A symbol. Not human. Not Vastal, but familiar. Alara's knees gave slightly. She whispered. That was on the wall of their containment chamber. They used to show it to me. Like a question they were asking without words. What does it mean? Rourke asked. She shook her head, shaken for the first time. I don't know, but I think it's my answer they're waiting for. Rourke stared at her, and for the first time since Earth's fall, he felt the threat of something stranger than fear. Hope. Cadet Ken, he said, voice low. I don't care what rank you are anymore. From this moment on, you answer only to me. Another tremor. Outside the dome, the first dark vessel broke, atmosphere silent, not firing, but lowering steadily, as if descending to collect something. Or someone. Alara whispered, they never finish a purge until the last variable is resolved. Rourke didn't understand the words, but he knew what they meant. They weren't here to destroy humanity. They were here for her. The sky above Covas 3 turned black, not from ash or smoke, but from the absence of stars. The Vastal vessel was descending, no engines, no thrusters, just a silent fall like gravity itself had bent in reverence to their arrival. Inside the base, chaos whispered through corridors, runners with trembling hands. Officers barked orders already obsolete by the second, and deep in the reinforced shelters. Cadets wept where no one could see, but in Sergeant Rourke's war room, there was only silence. Alara stood at the center, haloed by flickering data projections, her eyes reflecting the black sigil hovering in the feed. That same symbol had burned itself into the monitors across the base, ancient, alien, and waiting. They're not attacking, Rourke said. They've breached orbit, scrambled comms, paralyzed every system we've got, and they haven't fired a shot. Why? Alara didn't respond immediately when she spoke. It was like breaking a seal long left untouched. Because this isn't war to them, it's culling, selective, deliberate. They're not trying to wipe us out. They're trying to understand what we are and if we deserve to go on. Rourke's jaw flexed. We're not cattle to them, Alara said. We're variables. Threats, perhaps, or worse, potential. Rourke stared at her. And you're the answer they're afraid of. She met his gaze. I think I'm the one they failed to rewrite. I don't know why, but I remember what they did, and they know it. He paced, breathing hard. Command won't send backup, even if they wanted to. We're off the grid. This outpost was built for resistance, not survival. Then resist, Alara said. Rourke stopped. Her voice wasn't loud. It wasn't angry, but it was final. He turned. With what? We've got 6 bunkered cannons, half-powered drones, and 100 cadets who haven't even fired at a live target. They'll follow you, she said. They'll die. Alara took a step forward, or they'll awaken. Rourke studied her, and in that moment, he saw it again, the calm in her blood, the storm buried behind her silence, something the Vastal had tried to erase, but couldn't. Maybe it was trauma. Maybe it was evolution. Maybe it was humanity itself. He tapped his calm. Patch me through to all secure shelters. Authorization, Iron Shield. No encryption. They need to hear. This, a green light blinked. Live. Rourke's voice filled the base. This is Sergeant Rourke. By now, you've seen them. You've felt how the air itself bends under their arrival. The Vastal didn't come to crush us. Not yet. They want. You is quiet, paralyzed. They want us to surrender without firing a shot. But here's the thing. They miscalculated. We are not the scattered refugees they think we are. We're the remnants of Earth. We're the ones who crawled through ash and ice and vacuum to get here. And we didn't come this far to die without making them bleed. Lock in. Load up. And if this is our last stand, let's make it one day. Never forget. The channel closed. For a moment, only the base's ambient hum answered. Then a dozen green lights blinked. Shelter responses, ready. Alara exhaled slowly. They'll come for the command center first, she said, to extract. Me? Let them, Rourke muttered. We'll make it a goddamn mistake. He keyed the activation switch on a sealed vault. The wall hissed open, revealing a weapon long forbidden by Central Command. Project Gravitide. A weaponized gravity disruptor. Illegal, incomplete, and built from stolen Vastal tech. No one's ever fired this, Alara said quietly. Good, Rourke growled. Let's be the first. A tremor shook the chamber. The lights stuttered. They've breached the outer ring. Someone reported. No gunfire. Just, they're moving through us. Like smoke. Alara closed her eyes. I need to go to them. Rourke grabbed her arm. Like hell you do. She met his gaze. If I run, they'll chase. If I stand, they'll listen. That's how they test us. I won't lose you. You never had me, she said softly. Not yet. She pulled away. Outside, the Vastal descended. Not soldiers, not drones. Shadows. Shapes formed from refracted space, gliding over terrain like oil on water. Silent. Effortless. Predatory. Alara stepped out into the cold air of the dome's edge, unarmed, hands at her sides. One of the Vastal constructs halted in front of her, an arch of impossible geometry. Vaguely humanoid, limbs stretching backward like wine-bank glass. It didn't speak, but something in Alara's mind ignited a pulse of thought, not language. Will you show us what we missed? She didn't answer. She simply raised one hand. Behind her, Covas 3's guns came online, and for the first time in a decade, humanity fired first. The Vastal did not scream when they were torn apart. They simply unraveled, as if the universe retracted its consent for their existence. The first salvo from Covas 3's Gravitic. Cannon slammed into the shadow creatures like a silent wave of annihilation. No fire, no smoke, just the collapse of form, where the Vastal had glided moments before. Only pockmarked ground and cratered air remained. In the command chamber, the tactical wall flared with data. 3 units neutralized. No return fire. No movement. Rourke stood motionless, eyes locked on Alara's silhouette on the observation deck. She hadn't flinched. When the cannons fired, she didn't turn. When the tremor hit, she simply stood, face toward the wreckage, daring them to answer. But the Vastal didn't retaliate. They advanced. The ground warped in concentric spirals, gravity folding like silk. The shadows reformed, but different now. Thicker, taller, humanoid, but wrong. Eyes like dying stars. They moved not with speed, but inevitability. The kind of presence that makes even time hesitate. Inside the command vault, Rourke's jaw tightened. They're adapting. That's what they do, Alara said. She walked back inside, calm, pale from something unseen. They learn from resistance. That's why they don't attack first. They're harvesting patterns, how we fight, how we think, how we choose. You make them sound like gods. No, she said, eyes burning. They're more dangerous than that. They think they're right. An alert flared on the command screen. One of the cadet shelters, Sector Theta, had gone dark. Breach, Rourke asked. The tech stammered. No signs of entry. Just everyone inside stopped transmitting. Not dead, not alive, just gone. Alara's hands clenched. It's begun. The refraction. They're separating variables, taking those they don't need, collapsing their timelines, erasing outcomes. Rourke felt a chill in his bones. And I'm what they couldn't collapse. More tremors. The shadows now surrounded the base perimeter, but still, no attacks, no weapons, just waiting, watching, judging, and then a voice, not sound, not in the room, inside their minds. We have seen your war, your fire, your fear. You were not the first to scream into the void. People collapsed. One tech vomited. Another clawed at his ears, though there was no noise. Only Alara stood tall, You altered me, she said aloud, eyes locked on the observation glass. But I kept what mattered. The voice returned, this time only to her. You kept defiance. I kept memory. Suddenly, the power in the vault died. Not flickered, died. Every console went dark. Emergency lights failed. Even backup batteries offered no glow. It was a silence that suffocated, and in that dark, something entered, a shape, a fragment of folded space. No footsteps, no motion, just a shift from absence to presence. Everyone froze, except Alara. She stepped forward. You want me, she said into the dark. You think I'm your conclusion? Then come take me. The air fractured, something lunged, and Rourke reached for her, too late. But Alara didn't run. She caught it. The thing that erupted from nothing, a writhing amalgam of fractal limbs and crushing force, struck her like a meteor, and she held it. The sound it made when it hit her was like a neutron scream. A rip in pressure, a shockwave bent around her. She didn't scream. She didn't bleed. She threw it across the chamber. It smashed through reinforced alloy and vanished into the corridor, leaving behind only sparks and twisted steel. The silence that followed was different. Not fear. Rourke stared at her. How she shook. Breath ragged, eyes distant. I don't know, but that wasn't strength. It was rejection. Of what? Of their truth. Outside, the Vastal formation stopped, not destroyed, not broken, pausing. For the first time, they hesitated. They felt that. Rourke whispered. Alara turned to the remaining cadets in the war room, faces pale, eyes wide. And yet, they had seen something. They had seen the impossible. You're not soldiers yet, she said to them. Your answers, each of you. Every time we disobeyed, every time we refused to vanish, we became a question the Vastal couldn't solve. Are we fighting gods? One of them asked. No, Alara said. We're reminding them they're not. Outside, the air rippled. The ground shook once more, but this time the stars didn't disappear. They shivered. A lone star blinked in the Covus 3 sky. It shouldn't have been there. The Vastal always blacked out the stars when they came, folding light, severing signals, silencing hope. But now, amid the pulsing void of their presence, one star fought its way through. Alara stared at it from the shattered edge of the command deck. She bled from her temple, breath shallow, every nerve trembling from the force she'd barely contained minutes earlier. The base behind her buzzed with frantic activity, but none dared disturb her. Not after what she'd done. Not after she caught the Vastal beast with her bare hands and threw it back into the dark. Sergeant Rourke stood beside her, the tension. In his shoulders a mix of fear and reverence. They've stopped moving. He said quietly. They're just watching now. They don't know what I am. Alara murmured. They made you. Rourke said. No, she whispered. They tried to, but something stopped them, something unfinished. She turned to him, eyes burning like the edge of dawn. There's something buried in me, something older than even them. Rourke frowned. What do you mean? Alara didn't answer right away. Instead, she pulled from her jacket a small, obsidian data shard, one she had hidden since before. Covus 3, before the academy, before she ever wore a uniform. She handed it to him. He scanned it. The readout flickered across his ocular lens. At first, it looked like ancient Earth junk. Corrupted sectors, old postcode relics, some half erased. Logs. But then, something blinked. A voice. Filtered, staggered, female, Earth accented, human. This is archival Echo 6. If you're hearing this, you're not dead, or you're what came after us. Either way, listen. We knew they were coming before the fall. The Vastal, not by name, but by footprint. They erased civilizations before us. Seas, too. But we left something behind. Not a weapon, a message, buried in the genome, carried in the survivors. You are the Resistance. Rourke blinked, stunned. Where did you get this? I was born on the Ark ship Meridians. Wake, Alara said. We didn't know what we carried. But something in that data triggered when the Vastal touched me. It activated. The fragment. It's not a weapon, Rourke said, eyes wide. It's a countermeasure, a living one. Alara nodded. My resistance to their rewrite, my strength, it's not mine. It's ours, hidden in human blood, lost in time, passed down through the ones who wouldn't bend. The text nearby stared. One whispered, we're the message. No, Alara said, we're the answer. Rourke's calm sparked. Sergeant, incoming drone footage. You're going to want to see this. The screen flickered to life. Vastal forces across the outer ring had frozen, but now some were fracturing. Not destroyed, not under attack, just glitching, shapes warped, forms distorted. A few began to collapse inward, vanishing like threads pulled through a needle. They're retreating. Someone whispered. No, Alara corrected. They're correcting. They've seen something that doesn't fit their model. Rourke muttered. And when gods don't understand something, they destroy it. The base trembled. Alarm screamed. A deep, concussive hum filled the air. Not external, not mechanical, gravitational resonance. The Vastal were pulling space itself inward, preparing to localize collapse, a gravity sink. Rourke breathed. They're going to erase the whole sector. We have less than 5 minutes. A cadet shouted. Everything beyond the perimeter will fold into singularity. Everyone turned to Alara. She stood still, staring up at the sky, at the star that still refused to die. We need to send the message, she said. Rourke blinked. What message? The one buried in me. If I go to them, to the heart of the sink, I can amplify it. The Vastal operate on truth, on patterns. They need everything to fit. If I break their equation from inside, I might infect their network. Make them see what they buried. You'll never make it out, Rourke said. I was never meant to. No, he growled. I won't let that. She touched his chest, gently, with gratitude. You gave me a name, a place. You. Watch me become what they tried to erase. Don't ask me to lose you, he said, voice raw. You won't, she said. You'll remember me. She turned to the cadets. Prepare the arc rail. I need a direct launch vector into the singularity. One protested. Mum, that's an order. The cadets saluted, every one of them, not out of protocol, but out of reverence. Alara turned back to Rourke. Promise me something, anything. If this works, if the Vastal fall, tell the galaxy. He nodded, tears at the edge of his voice. I will. No, she whispered. Make them feel it. As she stepped into the launch pod, the world behind her dimmed, lights flickered. The base groaned, but still, that one star blazed in the sky. The arc rail powered up. Alara strapped in, the data shard embedded in her chest plate. As the countdown began, she whispered the last words to herself. We were never broken, just waiting to be remembered. And then she launched, straight into the storm, straight into the heart of the Vastal's final judgment. The arc rail flung her through the dark like a whisper through a scream. Alara's body strained against the G-force, blood pulling at her temples, vision flickering, but her grip never wavered. Through the narrow viewport, the collapsing singularity pulsed like a black sun, folds of space coiling around it in silent, apocalyptic fury. The Vastal had committed. They would erase everything to correct the anomaly she had become, and she was going straight into the heart of it. Behind her, Covus 3 was a blinking dot surrounded by chaos. Thousands of Vastal projections loomed. Over its surface, silent sentinels, waiting for her to vanish. Rourke's last words rang in her ears like oxygen. Make them feel it. The shard embedded in her chest plate hummed. The ancient data pulsed with a rhythm not digital, but biological. A signal not to machines, but to minds. Memory encoded in DNA, emotion nested in logic. It wasn't a weapon. It was a refusal, the kind of message that demanded the universe listen. It was everything the Vastal had erased and failed to unmake. The stories, the pain, the love, humanity. She blinked against the tears pressing into her vision. Almost there, she whispered. And then, contact. She breached the singularity's edge. It didn't tear her apart. Not immediately. Instead, time fractured. The world spun. And Alara was not alone. She stood in a void of light and shadow, not physical, but experiential. It was as if her consciousness had stepped onto a stage built from every memory ever lived. A million flickers pulsed around her, burning cities, newborns screaming their first breath. Wars fought in the rain, an old man whispering a name before death. Alara staggered. In front of her, something formed, a shape, tall, vast, made of collapsing galaxies and fractured logic. The Vastal Prime. You are the contradiction. Its voice was not sound. It was judgment, a wave of pressure. On her soul, we offered erasure, mercy. You refused. Alara's voice was small, but steady. You don't understand what we are. You are violence, unpatterned, dangerous. No, she said, stepping forward. We are the ones who remember, the ones who choose. The Vastal shape writhed. Choice is error, it's pain, she corrected. But it's also love, wonder, loyalty. You tried to remove our jagged edges, but that's where the light gets in. She raised the shard. It glowed, not with power, with memory. Flashes burst in the void, real human moments, a child's laughter in zero gravity, a soldier dragging his friend from a wreck, a mother recording a lullaby before launch, a rebel kissing her wife before detonating the last escape tunnel. The Vastal trembled. We cannot assimilate this. That's the point. She walked straight toward the monolith, the light growing around her. You erased us for millennia, but we were always the splinter you couldn't remove. Because we don't live in perfection, we live in the cracks. The light ignited, the shard fractured, and from it burst a wave, not of energy, of emotion, raw, uncontrolled, and infinitely human, pain, joy, sacrifice, fury, hope. Every moment the Vastal had ever erased poured back into the void, flooding the network that had tried to make reality obey. The Prime reeled, stop, but it was too late. The Vastal began to remember, not as conquerors, but as witnesses. They saw what they had silenced. They felt what they had judged irrelevant. They were not made to endure contradiction, but now contradiction lived in their core. Across the galaxy, Vastal constructs froze, some imploded. Others simply went still, as if the logic holding them collapsed under the weight of feeling. On Covas 3, the black sun overhead dimmed. Rourke watched it unfold from the command deck. He gripped the railing as if the sky itself might fall. Cadets and officers stared upward, silent. The ground stopped shaking. The pressure faded. The enemy stood inert. They're stopping. Someone said, no. Rourke whispered, there. Waking up, inside the singularity, Alara collapsed to her knees. The shard was gone. Its light spent. Her body trembled, barely able to breathe. She could feel herself slipping, the pull of the collapsing space trying to consume her. But she had done what she came to do. One last voice echoed from the void. Not hostile, not alien, familiar. You are not alone, Alara. It was the voice from the shard, the ancient Earth woman. We always knew someone would carry the weight. Light surrounded her, not blinding, embracing, and then everything went white. On Covas 3, the Vastal shadows receded, not fled, not shattered, learned. Where once they hovered like executioners, now they dissolved like morning mist. Structures crumbled into dust. The black clouds above fragmented, revealing the real stars, bright and countless. Rourke fell to his knees. She did it, he said, choking back something between a sob and a laugh. She actually did it. No explosion, no war cry, just silence. And then a single calm channel flickered to life. Rourke, her voice, broken, soft, but unmistakably alive. They saw us. They saw us. Her voice crackled through the static, like a ghost clawing its way through the interference of a dying storm. Rourke collapsed into the calm chair, hands trembling. Alara, he whispered, unbelieving. Say that again. They saw us. They felt us. Around him, the entire command center froze, monitors dimmed, alarms silenced. Officers and cadets leaned in, clinging to every syllable as though it might vanish with the wind. Outside the base, the sky had transformed, no longer blanketed in. The Vastals devouring black, no longer dead. Stars, real stars, blazed in impossible color across the heavens. The veil lifted. And more than that, the Vastal were gone, not in retreat, not in destruction, but in recognition. Rourke closed his eyes, letting the reality crash over him like a wave. She had changed them. The girl who never raised her voice, the cadet no one noticed, the one they'd all underestimated, the one who had held a message inside her blood. Now, the entire galaxy was listening. Inside the collapsing singularity, Alara drifted. She wasn't dead, but she wasn't entirely alive in the same sense anymore, either. The Vastal had not killed her, nor absorbed her. They had acknowledged her. For the first time in their vast, cold dominion of reason and logic, they had seen something they could not parse, and they had stepped back. But the singularity still collapsed. The machine that had begun before thought was still unraveling. Reality, she had delayed their judgment, not stopped the laws of physics. Her voice faltered as she tried again. I'm still here, but I can't get out. The pod around her was failing. Light flickered. The hull groaned. Her hands bloody. Blister gripped what remained of the manual controls, but it was futile. The escape path was gone, and then a voice, not hers, not Vastal, Rourke, Alara. Hold on, we've got one shot. The singularity catcher just came online. She blinked, heart stumbling. The what? Prototype? Experimental? Doesn't matter. We're not leaving you in there. She laughed, a sound both broken and odd. You'd risk the whole station for one cadet. You're not just a cadet, Alara. You're the goddamn keystone of a new era. A new light appeared outside her viewport. Faint at first, then growing fast. A slingshot of gravitational. Pulses wound through the field, like a tether forming in the dark. Rourke's voice returned, urgent. When I say now, you burn the last of your power. Align to Vector 700. It'll pull you out. You get one chance. Alara looked at her console. Most of it was fried. Only a few controls still glowed. Only a sliver of hope. Ready. She closed her eyes. Always. Now, Alara punched the thrusters. The pod screamed. Metal snapped. Panels burst. Gravity tore at her, but the tether caught. It yanked her sideways out of the spiral, out of the singularity, out of death itself. Time warped. Light folded, and then silence. The pod slammed into the receiving bay at Covas 3 like a comet. Sparks and shrapnel scattered in every direction. Techs and medics rushed to the hatch, shouting orders, prying it open. Smoke billowed, and out of it she stepped, Alara, bloodied, soot-covered, shaking, but standing, breathing, alive. The entire hangar went still. Even the alarm seemed to pause. She looked up, eyes locking with Rourke. He was already running. He didn't stop. When he reached her, he just pulled her into a crushing embrace, arms trembling around the girl who had just saved everything. You came back, he said, voice ragged. I told you I would. He pulled back, just enough to look at her. You changed them. You made the Vassal feel. She nodded. They weren't made to understand pain or joy, but they carry logic. And I showed them that love is logical because we'd rather die for each other than live in silence. Someone began to clap, then another, and another, until the whole station officers, cadets, tech stood in a roaring ovation around her, not for a soldier, not for a weapon, but for a girl who had been born with something they'd all forgotten they carried: memory, emotion, humanity. Later that day, the high-channel relay opened. For the first time in history, a Vastal transmission was broadcast and filtered, unencrypted. Their message: we acknowledge the anomaly, we will not interfere, we will remember. Galaxies listened in silence, and for the first time since the fall of Earth, humans weren't being hunted, they were being heard. That night, Alara stood at the outer wall of the station, helmet off, letting the real starlight touch her skin. Rourke joined her. You know, he said softly, we thought we were fighting to survive. We were, she replied, but we were also fighting to be understood. She didn't answer right away. Then she smiled. Now they know what it means to be us. He nodded. And what's that? She looked up at the stars, at the vastness. The silence now filled with echoes of a girl who refused to be erased. And she whispered, we remember, we choose, we endure, and when we fall, we rise louder. The war was over, but there was no parade, no banners, no triumphant brass echoing through the corridors of Covas 3. Just a quiet hum of systems coming back online, and the slow, reverent silence of people realizing they were still alive. And more than that, they were free. The Vassal had withdrawn, not in retreat, not in fear, but in understanding. Their cold, monolithic architecture had simply ceased. Thousands of structures folding into the void, leaving only empty skies and shaken silence behind. No message followed, no retaliation, just the galaxy blinking into a new dawn. Alara Voss stood at the heart of it. In the days that followed, she refused interviews, refused medals. She walked the halls of Covas 3 not as a legend, but as a woman still recovering. Her steps were slow, her breath sometimes shallow. She bore the weight of memory like armor, and the galaxy whispered her name like a sacred word. Cadets would stop mid-sentence when she passed. Officers who once overlooked her now saluted without words. And Rourke, the man who had once called her ghost girl, stood at her side like a sentry made of stubborn pride and quiet awe. Still not used to the attention, he asked one evening, finding her seated on the observation deck again. I don't want it, she murmured. You earn it. I didn't do it for them. Rourke nodded, watching the starfields drift beyond the reinforced glass. I know. They sat in silence, outside. The stars were brighter than they'd been in generations. Transmission logs exploded. From the shattered remains of colonies long thought dead came life. Outposts hidden from the Vastal lens now sent messages of hope. Survivors emerged from bunkers, deep space hibernation. Even rogue AI systems reprogrammed in humanity's name. And across it all, one name kept appearing, Elaravos. They called her the Cadet who spoke to the gods, the memory shard. The one who made logic cry echo of Earth. None of those names felt right to her. She wasn't anyone's savior. She was just someone who refused to vanish. Then came the relics. As the Vastal fell silent, their control over forbidden systems collapsed. Human dig teams unearthed vaults of history, Earth's archives. Cultural imprints once thought eradicated, old songs, poetry, photographs from before the fall. A cracked HoloBook showing a child holding a parent's hand on Earth's last day. People wept. They remembered, and through it all, Alara's actions had become something greater than defiance. They were a blueprint. A decade later, in the central plaza of New Hesperia, the first free human capital since the fall, a monument stands. It is not tall. It is not gilded. It is made of stone, raw and imperfect. Just a single shape, a cadet's boot, cracked and dusty, standing firm amid scorched ground. Below it, etched in a quiet hand, we were almost forgotten, but we remembered ourselves. No grand name, no title, just a reminder. Rourke remained in command until the day he died. His final report to the assembly simply read, "She was never the weapon. She was the mirror." We looked into her and saw ourselves, not broken, but unfinished. The Vastal, they never returned. But sometimes, late in the deepest parts of space, ships detect pulses, soft, rhythmic, not binary, not command strings, but memory fragments, lullabies, cries, laughter, emotion wrapped in light, a silent acknowledgement that somewhere, deep in their ancient code, the Vastals still remember her. They remember us. Alara herself vanished. No record of her death, no grave, no trace of a ship leaving Covas 3, just gone. Some say she walked into the stars and never came back. Some say the Vastal invited her into their fold, not as a prisoner, but as a teacher. Others believe she simply went home, wherever that was. But all agree on one thing: she became legend, not because she destroyed an enemy, but because she reminded the galaxy what it meant to feel, to grieve, to rise, to endure. And so, when a child on a distant colony asks their parent, did she really throw a 400-kilo Vastal brute through a wall, the parent smiles and replies, yes, but that wasn't the day she became a hero. When did she? The day she chose not to be erased. Now, the stars carry our name, and hers is the first they speak.